Welcome to the podcast.
歡迎收聽
요거서 팟캐스트에
به پادکست ما خوش آمد.
مقیم با این پادکست
欢迎来到我们的播客
Benvenuti sul podcast
Common Fun Podcast.
日本から konnichiwa
Buongiorno
你
dall'Italia
好嚟自香港
Hello from New York.
سلام از ایران.
Hallo aus Deutschland.
Shalom Israel
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Crossing Cultures, the podcast where guests from all over the world talk about the subtle, surprising, intriguing, and bizarre cultural differences in everyday life. My name is Asaf, and today is part 2 of our special double episode about dating and relationships. If you've seen the first part of this episode, last week was we had the girls talk about their point of view, and now we're going to talk about the guys. We're just a all-guy panel here. We're going to talk about our point of view. I'm definitely going to take part in this conversation. I want to say that if you, I've heard people tell me that you couldn't find the podcast on some of the podcast apps. So if you're looking for the podcast somewhere, iTunes or Stitcher or wherever, and you can't find us, so please send me a message in wherever, I don't know, send a YouTube comment or send us an email or tag us on Facebook and let me know, and I'll make sure that you can find the podcast wherever you're looking for it. And of course, you can also text us or send us a message or tell us anything else you want us to know. Our email is crossingculturespodcast@gmail.com. Pretty easy to remember. Let's start with having our guests introduce themselves. We'll start with
Daniel from Brazil. What else do I need to introduce right now?
So last week we had Hannah, who's also from Brazil. She's from Sao Paulo, and you're from?
I'm from Rio.
Rio. And what do you have to say about what's going on in Brazil?
Like politically or?
No, just let us be confident that we're all counting on you. So just reassure us that it's going to be okay.
No, it's all good. Okay.
All right. See, that's one of the differences between men and women. At least if this is a microcosm of that. All right.
Héctor, I'm from Mexico. I'm from Tijuana.
Tijuana.
Yeah.
All right. And everything's okay in Tijuana?
Yeah, I guess so. Haven't been there in a while, but yeah, I think so.
All right.
I'm Evan. I came from the States. I lived on the East Coast by New York, and then I moved to Northern California, closer to San Francisco, and been here for 2.5 years, and nothing is right in the States, but, you know.
All right. And your girlfriend is Hannah, who was on the first part of this episode.
Yes.
So it's So Hannah, if you're listening to this, you have everything you've said is going to be either affirmed or contradicted by either your current boyfriend or your peer from your country. So no pressure, but just so you know.
I'm Tom from Belgium, from the north, from Antwerp. I moved here 1.5 years ago, and everything is okay in Belgium, I guess, except a huge budget deficit. But
that's the norm. Anyway.
That's the norm, anyways.
All right, and Antwerp is the Flemish part.
Yeah, it's the capital of the Flemish part of Belgium.
All right. Okay. So we're gonna talk about dating and relationships, and I'll first ask the question that I've asked the girls. Raise your hands if you've ever dated someone from outside your culture. All right. Now, if you have something like a story you'd like to share about let's call it a cultural friction you've ever had with someone you were either on a date with or in a relationship with.
I mean, I could say when I first moved here, there was situations where I was on dates with Israeli girls, and I feel like after the first date, something very different from what I was used to would happen. They would be like, "Oh, do you want to come over and have dinner at my parents' house?" And I was like, "Whoa, it's, date number 2. Let's, get to know each other a little bit. I mean, what's your last name even, right?" And they're just ready to jump right into the full brunt of everything. In America, it's like to get introduced to the parents, it's what happens before you get engaged. It's like those steps. And here it's just
how soon before? Because what you just said is almost exactly what Sarah said, who is also from New York. So that reaffirms everything you said. But how soon before you get engaged
You meet the parents way before you get engaged.
Okay.
At least you would hope. I had a friend who got married very quickly after they met one another. So their timeline was abbreviated, but it's probably like after you get to know somebody well enough, like 4 or 5 dates, you've been hanging out, you probably slept over at each other's place for a little bit, and then you could introduce them to the parents, because then you're not worried about like, oh, is this person going to embarrass me in front of my parents?
Wow, that's an interesting point of view. You don't want to be embarrassed by your date. All right, so not everyone
Deserves to meet the parents.
All right, and that is true. I can concur that in Israel, relationships move faster in the meeting the family lane, family friends. I think you would meet someone's parents pretty soon into the relationship. But I don't know in Belgium.
Well, in Mexico, you have to meet the parents right away. Like you start dating someone and you have to ask for permission from the father. So it's pretty scary.
Oh.
Yeah, you have to ask for permission, and if it says no, then
It's a no.
it's a no. Then you just go,
Okay.
Romeo and
Yeah.
Juliet.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, you have to ask. You have to ask permission. I think the second date or something like that.
Like formally, like really asking.
Yes. You need to hi, I'm Héctor. Can I date your daughter? No. Okay, thank you.
And what do you bring? Do you bear gifts? Do you ask are you asked specific questions? Do you have to show?
What do you do? Who are your parents? What do they do? Do they work? Do you have a job? Are you planning to study?
All of that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Where do you live?
well, I mean, if you pass that, then I guess it takes the pressure off. Like, it takes a lot of the pressure off because you get like an approval stamp.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, in Israel, it's not that different. It's just not the parents who do that, but the girl herself. At the first date, she asks you, how many children do you want? Do you like dogs? You see yourself in a house with a picket fence? What do you think about jobs? Are you in high tech?
Yeah.
Are you in high tech? Do you see yourself more working or taking care of the children? Everything in the first hour of the first date.
Yeah. Well, dates are always kind of a job interview.
Especially here in Belgium, it's much more casual. You talk about the job, you talk about life, but
Okay.
in no situation will she ask you how many children do you want, or like he said, invite you for Friday night dinner or Sunday dinner or whatever.
So give me an example because Tanya on the first part of the episode, she's from Austria, and she said in Austria, it really is a big deal to ask all these questions in the first at least few dates. What do you do? How's your job? How's your financial situation? Not in so many words, but kind of to figure that out. But what do you mean when you say talk about life? Talk about
You talk more about stuff you do, vacations. You talk about food you enjoy, experiences you have. You share stories. It doesn't sound like let's say an interview. It's more of a dialogue between two people who just are interested into getting to know each other without giving the feeling of intrusion.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel, this is a question to all of you, do you feel that when you're on a date with someone from your own culture, that you are judged by any specific measures like either your financial situation, your job situation, or even your personal affiliations with, so
Dating
what...
is all about judging all the time.
Of course. Of course. But be specific. So you would be at a date in Brazil. What do you think would be the best foot forward that you need to put to get to another date?
It really depends. Really depends the kind of people. But for the kind of people that I am more interested to get to know, I think they are more interested on how you are as a person. They are trying to get from your words and from your stories what you're more like your character or more like your values. I really think people are interested on this. But it depends. If you're just on a mood of a hookup and you're not judging that far, you're just checking if it's fun or not, maybe for that night. It really depends.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Mexico, if on the first date you make the mistake of taking her to tacos instead of a restaurant, then that's a big no.
Wow, magic stuff.
All right. Oh. I used to date a Mexican, and our first date was to go to tacos.
Really? and it worked. Well, maybe because you were a foreigner there.
It was her idea.
Exactly. It's different.
Her expectations were different.
Yeah, I cannot take a
I
Mexican
don't know
to
if it
tacos on
counts,
the
but
first date.
it was shrimp tacos. I
Oh
don't
my
know.
god, that's
So it's probably the same. Okay.
High class tacos.
yeah.
No, I think there's always a place where you want to get to know different things. Like you said, like if what the intentions are for the date. Sometimes you go on a date and the intention is like, oh, I'm feeling a bit lonely in my life. Maybe I need to find that person who matches with me. And then it's more like a job interview. But I very much have always appreciated to have the conversation where it's less about the formalities and more about like who you are and what's important to you deep inside.
But like generally speaking, let's say I were to tell you, Evan, I have a date tonight with someone from New York or someone from Northern California. What would you recommend that I emphasize in myself to make a good, lasting first impression?
What's a really interesting hobby or something that you've spent like years or a period of time like working on yourself that has nothing to do with work?
I see.
Like who are you personally? Like not where is your professional life taking you, or where do you see yourself in 10 years after we get married, right? Because like in America, for somebody to approach a first date with the thought of like we're gonna get married, you think the other person is crazy. You know, it's like it takes you back to those romantic comedies where the girl's like, oh my god, we're getting married, right? Yeah. I'm sorry, what's your name again?
All right. How do you impress a Belgian girl? What is the best strategy if you're going out on a date?
To be honest, I don't think there is a best strategy of what you should do. It's what you shouldn't do.
Okay.
Because you depends of the girl what you shouldn't do. At least there is, like I said, to be too intrusive or impolite. But I guess that's kind of everywhere. But I cannot actually say there's something that you can make an impression. It depends of the girl. But I kind of agree with Evan on this, also in Belgium. If you're an interesting person, you have something interesting to say. It's not what you have, but it's who you are. But again, depends from person to person. But
That's very interesting because you know, Evan, that when you meet someone for the first time in the U.S. and also in Israel, the first question you always ask is, what do you do? And you refer to what do they do for a living. You never ask someone...
I got shot down with that question one time in California. I was in Hollywood for the Grammys, and we had a private party, and there was this attractive blonde woman at the bar, and I asked her if she wanted to drink, and she said she wasn't drinking that night, so I was like, okay, I'll get you a Coke. And then I was like, so what do you do? And she's like, really? This is the most least interesting question that I've ever, like, I hate this question. And she was from the UK, and since then I realized I really don't care. Like, it doesn't make a difference what you are spending 40 hours a week doing. It's where do you take that extra time, that extra 12 or 15 hours that you're free to do your own things that really makes a true connection between two people.
I was told once by someone from Norway, and if somebody listening is from Norway, please either concur or tell me that's wrong, that in Norway it's impolite to ask someone, what do you do? As the first question. Nice. You have to ask, what do you like doing? And that, I think, is a better definition of oneself. When you ask someone, and it might be your job. You might say, well, I do what I love, and then you can talk about it and express your passion to your work. But I think, I totally agree that for getting to know someone, it's easier to ask, what do you love doing, and talk about what you love doing. All right, let's talk about dating apps. Are there any dating apps in Brazil, in Mexico, in Belgium? And are there any difference? I mean, obviously there are a million of them. But is there any difference? What would you use?
Haven't really used there, but I guess it's pretty much the same.
Is Orkut still a thing?
No,
it's dread. Okay.
No, for many years. Now it's already a joke. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
So don't use that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's pretty much the same. And when I was there, like, I don't know, I remember 5 years ago, I think it was like still a bit of a taboo, like that. You can't like really get to know someone seriously on these apps, and I guess that now is changed. Like you can get all kinds of things. You can get hookups, and you can get like serious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty much like here.
And I think in the U.S. it's like it's becoming the norm to meet someone through a dating app, or is it?
Not even necessarily a dating app. I can't tell you, like, I probably know people who have been introduced through something else. Like, people who were friends of friends who started playing Words with Friends with one another. And this was like 5 or 6 years ago. But then they're like, oh, you're interesting. And they're having like a little side conversation inside a, crossword. Or, what was Words with Friends based off of? Scrabble.
Okay.
It's like you're playing Scrabble with somebody that you don't really know, but then you get to know them in a conversation, you meet them in real life, and it's not so much a dating app. But like, I'm thinking about myself prior to that, the 2 long-term relationships I had in the States were both with women that I had met virtually before physically.
Mm-hmm.
And one was through a website that it was like a interest-based website, and I was like, hey, I'm moving to California, I want to meet new people, I saw that you have same interests as me, maybe we could get together for a beer, and then we ended up living together for 3 years. And then another girl was on Whisper, which is not a dating app, and you have no profile whatsoever, you just post a comment, and then we just started having this side conversation, agreed to meet for Italian dinner in her neighborhood, and then we ended up together for 3 years as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I think that the line of how you meet somebody is, at least in the U.S., really just kind of inconsequential now.
We had a discussion last week about pickup lines. So I want you to give me your best pickup line.
Oh no, don't do this.
Or your worst.
I really don't use pickup lines. Like,
So what's your approach?
I try to, like, if it's personally, I try like to say hi and to the best if you have something to start a conversation. You saw something on her, you saw something the drink that she's drinking, and you have something to say about it,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know, but just start talking like the most natural as possible. That's what I try to do. Like, I don't remember like a pickup like really official one.
Well, I'll ask it this way. I think there's like 3 approaches. There's either the situational approach where you, like you said, you address something that's actually happening.
Yeah.
And then there's like trying to be, that's one approach. The other approach is like trying to be really smart and funny and like quirky and like accentuate like your sense of humor. And then the third approach is to say, hi, you seem nice, I wanted to talk to you. So to which one of them do you think you would...
I go more for the last one, because like you can be a little pressured to do this sometimes, but if it works, like, it will be the best beginning. Like, I think girls really like when you go like straightforward and say it, and you will discover love also like fast if it's not like, if they're not interested. So I would say
So if you're in Brazil and you want to talk to a girl, you would say that she will let you know immediately if she likes you or not?
No.
No?
Yeah, like you just said Brazil, and then my brain made a switch. And then I was, oh, there.
So
could
you were
be, like, I
you were
could
thinking about
try-
Israeli girls. 'Cause I
Yeah.
had the suspicion that you were thinking about Israeli girls
Yeah,
because it's
could
also
be.
something that we talked about.
I
The
forgot
Israeli
my
girls-
origins
yeah.
already.
Because in Israel, if you talk to a girl and she doesn't like you, the conversation will be over immediately. There's no point
Yeah.
keeping it going.
Yeah.
But in Brazil,
Yeah, in Brazil things are more like they are less black and white.
Mm.
Like, I think people will be like playing more and like talking, even if they are not sure if they are interested or not, or even just talking because they agree to talk,
Uh-huh.
but they are not necessarily into something. I think everything is more relaxed, and people like you can be talking for 10 minutes and it's already very clear, and you can be talking like for one whole day that you are like, I don't know, on a trip with someone, and only on the end of it you will see how it goes.
interesting. And in Mexico?
I'm a shy person. Like, with my friends, I'm outgoing and everything's fun, but in that area, I'm very shy. So I usually use my friends as an excuse to talk to people.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would go and talk to girls, and I'd let my friends are asking if you want to come to us, like, to sit with us at the table or something like that, if we're at a bar. and then it becomes more comfortable for me if I'm around people, but because I cannot just go and talk to a girl. But I did had a girlfriend that when I met her, she had a boyfriend, and I was previously warned by a friend that she was in a relationship for 7 years and that I shouldn't get in there. So I said okay, but at the moment that I saw her, I fell in love, and I found out everything about her, and she liked horses, and so one day I just went to her house on a horse.
You went to her house and you what?
On a horse.
On a horse.
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah, I'm not making this up.
Okay.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
I was living in
What is happening with Mexico? Like,
I
you
was-
go
I
on a
love it.
horse,
Yeah, I
you
love
ask
it.
for the dad.
He's making us look bad.
All right, seriously, where's my horse?
and this is the most like outrageous things that I ever did, you know?
Oh
And
my
and
God.
she told me, you know what? I have a boyfriend. I said, oh, don't worry, I'm not jealous.
You know what they say? It's only stalking if you're not good looking. So.
And it worked because we ended up together for 3 years. You know? But this is the biggest thing that I ever did in my life, because
Okay.
usually I'm very, very shy.
So the pickup
That's some
line, that's
story.
the interest.
Yeah.
Rented a horse.
I got it from a friend. I was living up in the mountains. I was doing a social service over there, and so I had easy access to horses. So, yeah,
It's good. No, that's
I didn't know how to ride though. So. She knew.
that's a really good pickup line.
Yeah.
No, I tend to find that humor and like either self-deprecating or insulting towards the other person, but not like extremely putting them down, but like saying, "Oh my God, why would you wear something like that?" Or you know, it's just like really opening up the conversation and then allowing it to be humorous and lighthearted. Just changes the entire initial tone of getting to know somebody. Because if you approach somebody with a high, then there's a potential for them to feel standoffish. But if you either make yourself feel lower or make them feel lower, it completely changes the entire dynamic of the conversation from the onset.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel a bit bad sitting here because he says everything I'm thinking. And when my turn comes up, I'm like, okay, what am I gonna say? So I will start with, I agree with Evan, more situational and funny, because in situations where you approach and say, hi, my name is Tom, I would like to know you, or something like that, you're kind of blocked with the conversation. Your next question will be, what do you do, or what do you like doing?
Uh-huh.
Meanwhile, if you approach it with humor, like you said, either self-deprecating or something situational, you can go any direction you want with the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I agree a little bit more with Evan.
Yeah, I mean, you're telling somebody that your spaceship is sitting outside and like you're just waiting for it to finish refueling before you could really head out. So you ask them if they want to have a quick drink with you before you got to take off and head off to like Alpha Centauri or something like this. Completely throws somebody off guard.
Yeah, and you can tell if they have no idea what you're talking about, you can immediately decide, okay, I'm not sure I want to pursue this.
And you test their sense of humor. For example, I was in a bar inside, and I heard a woman saying next to me, wow, it's so hot in here. So I turned around and said, you haven't been in my dungeon yet. And and then you can also see the entire
response.
conversation, how she responds. And
All right, let's talk about dating etiquette. So, what is considered, let's say, how chivalrous should you be on a date in Brazil? Or talk about just like Brazilian men in general. Do you open the door for the girl? Do you pay for the date? Do you, I don't know, walk in the side? You walk, I think, when you walk in the, you walk in the sidewalk?
On the left side.
You have to be on the street
facing
side.
the street, yeah.
Okay, yeah. In Israel, I never knew about that, but in Brazil, how tightly do you adhere to these rules of conduct?
I think that in general, like compared to US or to Mexico, as I'm seeing now, like it's less. It's just like more relaxed. I think it's considered like very old-fashioned nowadays to open the door of the car, and mostly I imagine the girls wouldn't like it. Would be like too weird and artificial. But I think the thing that still is there is the paying for at least for the first date. But it's also like open to the negotiation, like not like literally, but depending on the situation. Like I think many liberal, open-minded girls would even like to split the bill, because like people like not making dates a big deal anymore, because it's super annoying, like to be a big
Yeah.
deal. So I think everybody likes to be more, especially in Brazil, it really fits our personality, like to
Yeah.
relax and let's see how it goes. And if it's like a small thing, you can say no, it's on me. It's like very naturally, but not like take it to a fancy
don't make a
dinner
fuss.
and yeah.
All right, interesting.
In Mexico, you have to be a gentleman. You definitely have to be a gentleman. If they're cold, you take your coat. You have to open the door so they can get in and get out. When I got here, it was very awkward that I would try to, like, I would get out of the car, and when I would get to the other side, they were already out. And like, what, you think I cannot do it by myself? Okay. So it's kind of different. And if in Mexico, if you pay for the bill, you're considered a gentleman. And here you split the check and everything's cool.
Actually, most of the cases here, I pay at least for the first date. Yeah, but like not in a fancy restaurant.
Actually, in Israel, I felt that if you don't pay for the first date, there's no second.
Oh, really?
I've had that happen.
Yeah.
I feel
No.
in general they expect it, yeah.
My personal experience is that sometimes they would expect you to pay, but at least half of the time, again, if it's natural and it's not a big deal and it's not a fuss.
Yeah, and it's like, I'll
And
pay
it's-
the next one and something like
it's
this.
not a problem. Yeah.
Can be natural.
Or at
Yeah.
least like you're reaching for the wallet. You know?
Yeah, no, I feel like in America there's definitely a class-related difference in this. Like if you were to take a girl out who's from like old money, like the family has money, you should act gentlemanly. They wouldn't expect it of you, but if you do, it makes you more viable of a partner instead of just like somebody to sleep with, right? If you are with somebody, you know, from the middle class who, you know, tends to be more liberal, and like if you were to try to open the door for them or you try to pay for the bill, they would get angry with you.
Yeah.
And if it's somebody lower class and you treat them with this respect, then they're like kind of melt into you. And here I see that difference, but it's like much more cross. It's you know, like I don't want to generalize, but like there's certain like people that come from different backgrounds that have like an expectation. Like if you don't pay for the bill on the first date, then you're a piece of shit.
Here in Israel.
Yeah. But not from Israeli girls, because you know there's people from all over the world
Yeah.
here. And I don't want to make generalizations, but there's people from certain places that have different expectations of what you get on a first date.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the cultural differences, of course. Have you ever had a case where you found something, dating someone from another culture, you found something like delightful in that experience?
In the first date?
It could be the 9,000th date, whatever. I'll share a story. I don't know if this counts, and I might have to edit this off. But I dated a girl from, I'm not gonna say where she's from because I don't want to embarrass anyone, but she had a problem pronouncing the th sound in English. So in the morning she would wake up and say, "I'm going to brush my teeth," and I would ask her if she needs help, and she always looked at me kind of weird, but I always found it a really, really funny and a delightful way to start your day.
Well, I mean, I could piggyback off the last question and also bring Hannah into the conversation. In that, like, one time we were walking down the street, and I recognized that she was on the street side of the sidewalk, and I moved around to the other side and moved to the street side and moved her towards the building side of the sidewalk, and she appreciated the chivalrous aspect of it. So I thought that was really cute and endearing that somebody would have this appreciation for the chivalry, even if it was like something that was kind of like I feel like I should do this now, even if it was like subconscious. It was just really cute to have that somebody from a different culture experience something that like I learned from my grandparents growing up.
You know, now that you say this, the first time that I went out with my girlfriend on the second date, I did the same. I went to the side of the street, and she asked me like, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "Well, because it's like a way of protecting you." And she's like, "But what if the air conditioner falls on top of me?" It's like, okay, I guess.
And where is she from?
Shit from here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because for
Yeah.
us it's weird.
I always found it like this thing of walking on the side of the street really weird. Like even if my dad does this for me, like because what's the difference? Like if a car runs away inside the sidewalk, like he will like protect him and wait, like and hold with the hands. Like it's kind of weird.
You will die first. And that is
It's
a gesture.
It's the thoughts that, the gesture
it's
that
the
matters.
gesture.
I would give more chances. Okay, to the other person to leave. Okay.
Okay. Do you guys text a girl after if you have had a good time on a date? Would you text them or would you
course.
wait?
I would text.
Text.
It depends what you want.
I try to call. I hate texting.
Really?
Yeah.
So there was this huge discussion last time. First
So
of all,
he's shy, but he
He
wants to.
calls.
He prefers to call and to ride horses.
He's a romantic.
Yeah.
yeah, because I think is there something very when you call someone on the phone, you talk to them on the phone. It's very personal. It shows a lot of effort, but also it might seem like very intrusive. So I think it really depends on who you're calling, because some people say, "Oh, this is so sweet that he took the time to call me and actually talk to me, and not just send me a text and then forget about it." But then other people will say, "Oh, you're taking another 10 minutes of my time, blocking me out of everything else that I'm doing now to talk to you." And I really think it depends.
Actually, this is the biggest difference that I felt when I started dating in Israel, is the calling.
Yeah.
In Belgium, you don't really call unless you're dating more than a couple of times or a relationship. You don't really call. It's intrusive. It puts her or yourself. You put yourself at a spot where you really need to, to talk, and you have no time to think. Meanwhile, in Israel, even on dating apps, if you want to meet her, she says before we meet, call me.
Yeah, I think it's very common in Israel
Yeah.
to call.
But you text before that you are calling or just call?
You just call, or she tells you.
Personally,
call.
Because this
I
makes
would
a big
establish.
difference.
I would establish if nobody's talking about calling, and I think it's a good idea to call. I would establish that I'm gonna make a call.
Yeah.
Also to know like when are they gonna be available and things like that. And also maybe it's just personally me, but I think like meeting someone, there's like a phobia that you meet someone that all of a sudden they have like a horrible, intolerable voice. And, I didn't know that you sound like that in real life, and now I have to split. But I mean, talking to someone is kind of like it is another level of communication. It's on a higher level of communication than sending a text. And I think in Israel we see it as a natural escalation of the relationship. If you start by texting someone, then that is very, very, very basic, and there's very little intimacy in that. And then the next step would be to actually hear someone's voice on the phone, talk, set aside some time to talk to someone, and then, of course, meet them in person.
But it makes it more personal to hear the voice than
Yeah.
just text. Because sometimes you want to say like something very short, and it becomes a whole conversation in texting, and you're ready to spend like 20 minutes texting, and this is the problem. This is what bothers me.
Yeah.
You're like already tired, but you don't know.
I want to say
exactly.
the flip side of that is that one time a girl asked me to have a video call before a date.
Wow.
And that was a huge red flag, and I should have seen that. Yeah, it was. So
That you should have seen.
I should have seen. Yeah. No, we went
So
out.
apparently you didn't see.
I went out on a date with her. It was just a horrible experience. And I should have. Now I know. Like no more video calls ever again.
This is not something.
Yeah.
This is not an agreeable.
I've never heard of something like that, actually. Did you call before the first date?
She just didn't want to be catfished, I guess.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's a thing, like in real life or just in the movies, but
No, it's
No,
a
it's
real
a thing.
thing.
it's a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Catfishing is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
All right.
No, but I think that there's also another space in between texting and voice calls is the voice messages.
Yes.
Like WhatsApp is probably the most common, but Facebook Messenger and things like this. Like the voice message is just that friendly medium, because you could like record a 30-second message and like fuck up so many times and just like restart. When Hannah was in Brazil, we would send each other these long, like 2-minute messages, and then eventually, like sometimes it would take 20 minutes to respond because like you're just re-recording, like, oh, I didn't like how that sounded, re-recording, and I'm like, okay, instead of spending 20 minutes waiting for the response. Why don't we just send the first draft?
That's also something that, at least in Israel, that we appreciate is the unedited version. All right, when you call someone, you can't edit out the words.
Mhm.
All right. Also, the girls talked about this. When you text, you can think about it. You don't have to respond now. You can think about your answer. You can consult. Girls love talking to other girls, and like getting their advice. And I think we do too.
I think everybody does.
Everybody
Yeah.
does. But when you call someone, there's no one to consult.
It's
It's
really
you.
great.
She
It's really
just asked
great.
me like
Yeah.
what I'm doing for tomorrow
Yeah.
night. What are we hanging out? Like, should I
You
tell
have to
her?
write it down before, you know. Okay, this is the topics that I'm gonna talk about.
I admit that I have like a little bit of phobia of calling, like in general. Also, like I don't like to talk on the phone with friends. We don't talk anymore on the phone. Like it's very rare, and I have this little bit of phobia to like start talking and maybe there's nothing to talk because then the problem is that you're not seeing the person, so it's a bit weird also. So I don't do it like a lot. Like doesn't come from me. But when I feel the girl like is more into talking, it happens to be really good because it's really on a different level and you feel already more the person. Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, I agree with him because if you have a silent moment on the phone, it's a silent moment on the phone. You don't see each other. It's
Yeah, that's
a
where-
huge black hole there in the middle that you just cannot get rid of. Meanwhile, if you're talking in front of each other, you just take a sip of your beer, you drink your Coke, you order something. I'm sorry, I need to go to the bathroom. Whatever, but on the
Yeah.
phone, it's really you're stuck there.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of people are afraid of these silences, whereas that's where the relationship actually builds up. You
It's
know?
a point of view. Yeah.
It's standing in silence
Facing this
and not
moment.
just filling the conversation with, my friend told me that whatever. So yeah, I don't know, but we'll transition to the flip side of this, also in the realm of texting and calling. When do you think it's appropriate to break up with someone via text message, and when does it have to be a phone call, and when does it have to be? I mean, if you're a year together, obviously it has to be in person.
message.
But
A text message from a foreign number when you're already in Singapore. Sorry, I just don't think this is working out.
You just send by post a letter.
You could just send your best friend to tell her, you know what? It's
So,
over.
you send your best friend on a horse.
He joined the army in another
Yeah.
country.
so how long do you think a relationship has to be? Like, what's the maximum limit where you can just text message someone and say, by the way, both sides, of course, if you're breaking up with someone or if someone's breaking up with you, when is the limit you would say, okay, this should have been a phone call, I feel offended now?
If you're not actually dating, but you're talking and you went on a date or two, but it's nothing serious, you can call or text. But once you've gone to a couple of dates and you've done some activities together and you know that one of the two is into the relationship, if we can call it a relationship, then it would be respectful to go for a drink with her and explain to her the situation.
I think everybody knows that, like intuitively, that point when, like in the beginning, it's a person that if you stop seeing her, and if you stop seeing each other, it will be like, okay, it's gone for your life, and you're not like, it wasn't like a really big deal. But if you are like already in a few dates, it's already someone. It's already like someone that you have a bigger connection, but it's
Yeah.
hard to establish a number. But
Yeah, but I
Agree,
feel
yeah.
like that point in time is different from culture to culture.
Yeah?
So I think that in some places, text you could even break up with someone even later into the relationship via text, whereas in other cultures, if you break up with someone on a text, like on the third date, fourth date, that would be too soon.
In Mexico, it also goes through the father, right? If you want
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but your daughter is not for me. She's great, maybe.
I think that breaking up by text, it's a horrible way. It's a big no-no. At least for me. I don't know my friends in Mexico, but for me, it doesn't matter in which stage you are. Like, the other person deserves the respect of
No,
facing her.
I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. But yeah.
But if you went out in a couple of dates and you can just disappear, like you don't like the person, just
Yeah,
disappear.
ghosting
I
ghosting
find it
has
really
literally
bad.
become an option.
Why even
Come
take
on,
the-
romantic. You just disappear.
Why not? Okay, you went 5 dates, you didn't like it. Why even call? then you will.
Because you
You
have
call
another
names or
person on
something.
the other side of the relationship
But-
that has an expectation. And
No, I think you actually you feel it like if you can feel if like it happens that both of the sides are not interested anymore, it will just like fade down, and it's okay because both of them. But you always know when if it's the case that you're not interested anymore, and the other part it is, you will feel it. And in these cases, you can't disappear. You just need to say the truth. Like that's what I would expect also to do. To people do
I
for
don't
me.
know.
Also, how much overlap in friends do you have? Right? Like, do you have mutual friends? Because you can't just like text somebody like, "Hey, I don't think this is working out." Like, you're gonna see them again in some way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. It's like the next time you're out at somebody's birthday party, you're just like, "Yeah, I know we had a lot of fun, but I'm not sure that this is working out for us." Right? Like,
yeah. I'll tell you something. I think, at least personally, I think it's very important for me to always end on a nice chord and have things like sealed. Never end something like kind of iffy. So even if it's one date and I know by the end of the date that I don't want to see this person ever again, I will send a text and I will say, "Hey, I had a nice time. I don't think this is going to work out." And I remember that one time when I was in the States, I went on a date with someone, with an American girl, and then I tried contacting her again to go out on a second date, and she didn't respond. And I assumed that she didn't want anything to do with me, and so I sent her a text and I said, "Hey, listen, I know you're not responding, and I'm assuming that you don't want to see me again, which is fine. I just wanted you to know that I had a really great time. It was wonderful, and that's it. Like a really nice." And she called me and she said, "That's the first time someone like usually if you don't respond to someone, they'll just assume that you don't want to see them, and they'll just let it go. But you called, and that is we didn't go on a second date or something, but it was kind of like a, let's call it a benign culture shock for her, I think, to let me know that this is something very atypical of people in the States."
And you continue dating.
No, we didn't go out on another date. We didn't. I was totally fine with it. I just thought, like, from my side of the world, I think it's pretty common, or it's very, I don't know. It would mean it's a good idea to just let someone know, "Hey, I agree that this is the end of the relationship." Okay, just to make it and end it somehow. Usually on a high note, but if not, then at least to make sure that everyone knows, everyone's on the same page. And you talked about ghosting and things like that, and I think, and Evan, you tell me from that in the US, a lot of things are left unsaid, that it's better to leave things unsaid and kind of get the idea without anyone discussing it, literally saying we are over, or we're not going to go on another date.
And I think it's even more comfortable for both parties, because you can make it up. You can just put makeup and say, "No, I broke up with her,"
It's like-
something like that.
I mean,
Yeah, but
it's
it
like what
depends
you're
where you
saying.
come from.
What you're saying, like with one date, right? Like this happens a lot. You go on a lot of first dates where you don't have a second date, and sometimes you don't need to explain to the other person. Like, it's just it didn't work for one reason or another. Maybe you don't even understand why it didn't work out for you.
No, but I mean, explaining would be awkward.
Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think in Israel, for the most part, explaining wouldn't be seen awkward. It would be, depending, of course, how you do it. But people will say, "Sure, thanks for letting me know. Thanks for making sure that we're on the same page, and now we can move on." I don't know.
In Israel, there's also a standard answer already. I think it's always ready. You're a very nice guy, but let's be friends. I think it's
Let's
like
be friends.
No, I know, because like when I showed up to a date wearing a vest and a bow tie, most of the times you don't get a second date.
you
So
do,
I
it's
don't
great.
even. Yes, when you do, you know that this is somebody who's
that's
on
the
your
one.
level.
Exactly.
Okay, we're back. And before we move on to our rapid fire question segment, I want to thank the First Social Radio in Israel and Oz Mizrahi and everybody who helps this show every day, every week. So just look it up on Google. Also, I want to thank my guests. But let's go on to our rapid fire question. We're going to do it slightly differently. So I'm gonna ask all of you the same question, and I want you to give me your best answer. Daniel, why should you date, for all the girls listening, why should you date a Brazilian guy?
We are fun. We are relaxed. We are warm. We are very nice people.
Yeah. By the way, if you start dating someone from Brazil and then you find out that you don't like the same football team, can you continue the relationship?
It's totally okay. Yeah.
Yeah?
No problem.
All right, Héctor.
We're Latin. We're fun. We are caring. We care a lot about family.
And gentlemen.
We're gentlemen, and we know how to cook.
Yeah, that is my favorite cuisine. Okay.
You shouldn't. You should not date an American guy. The Americans are horrible. The only reason you should ever date an American guy is just to get the passport.
Oh.
That's still a big reason for a lot of people. So.
A huge reason. Well, I guess being European has its advantages that, there are no preconceived conditions, it's easygoing. There is no macho culture. It's actually what you see is what you get. There's nothing behind it. It's very easygoing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say a lot of similar things. I think Israeli men are an open book, for better or for worse. So if you ask a guy what's wrong, he will just say it in your face. So it saves time if you want to break up with someone, at least. All right. Can you give me an example of something? What would a woman do on a date that would just get your heart? You would say, that is, oh my God, that is a small thing that she does, and you would fall in love with her. Not necessarily fall in love, but just like think highly of her.
Come on, I'm always the first.
I'll start. I was on a date with someone, and it was very boring. We couldn't find anything to talk about. There was no real attraction. It was kind of lame anyway. And then she noticed that I was wearing a shirt. Have you ever seen that MTV show Pimp My Ride? So I was wearing a shirt that says Pimp My Ride, and she says, "That's a really nice shirt. I really like that show." And it was my favorite show at the time, and none of my friends watched that show. And she noticed it, and then we said, "Oh my God, can we please talk about that show? Because I have no one to talk to about it." And she said, "Sure, I love that show." And then we talked for like an hour just on that show. I all the pressure that's been building up, wanting to talk to people about that show, just came out. And I think if you find something that you like, some esoteric thing that only you like and none of the people in your vicinity, like, but you do, and then someone talks to you about it, that is, for me, it's a wonderful moment. And I think that we didn't go out on a second date, but if she asked for one, I would approve just to talk about Pick My Ride one more time. but I mean, but in more general terms, I think when somebody finds out, or when you serendipitously find out that you have a common interest, especially something esoteric and meaningless to other people, I think that is probably one of the best things you can do.
I would say probably sense of humor. If I say something funny or abnormal, I start with a ridiculous story, and instead of saying, "I don't understand what you're saying, it's a bad joke," she actually goes with the flow and continues and says something much more ridiculous than that. For me, that is someone I can flow with, and that kind of closes the deal for me.
I'd say just being open-minded to something crazy. I could think of a couple times that I hung out with people. One, it was like, "Hey, do you want to go rock climbing?" I haven't been rock climbing in 7 years. She had never been rock climbing, and she said yes. I was like, that's awesome. Like, that right there. Or like a friend of mine said, like, "I got a slinky, and it's a giant slinky, and we need to find steps somewhere in Tel Aviv to make this slinky go down." And turn that into a night of just riding bikes around the city, trying to find the perfect staircase for this slinky. By the way, it was by Kikara Bima. So,
Okay.
just something like this.
That's just respectful with the people around. Like if we're in a restaurant and she's like respectful to the waiter or waitress, because people can be idiots. Yeah.
Daniel, You've had time to think.
Yeah, actually, it isn't good because now they took like many
Welcome to my world, Daniel. This is how I'm feeling.
I can add like to be spontaneous. I think, as I said, like dating can be a very annoying big deal and very artificial. So anytime that things go spontaneous, like in a spontaneous way, for example, if you just like started to go dating, but then you are going on a trip with your friends and you say, you know what, you want to join and like see and just like do a little bit of these spontaneous things. I think it's really like relaxes everything and gets you closer. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to tell one more story. I was many years ago on a date with someone, and in the middle, we were maybe an hour into the date, and after an hour, just in mid-sentence, she stood up, she said, listen, I don't like this date, I'm not having a good time, you're not asking me the questions that I want to be asked, and she gave me like all the things that I've been doing wrong, and then she said, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and when I come back, it's going to be a completely different date, okay? And
Wow.
And I said, all right. And then she went to the bathroom, and I thought about all the things she said, which were all true. Like, I talked too much about myself. I didn't ask her all these questions, things like that. But she came back, and it was like a second date with a completely different person. It was really interesting. Yeah. She was, of course, Israeli, because, you know, we tell people what we think.
That happens here.
And I think, there was...
That's amazing.
Yeah. That was a very educational experience for me. Yeah, so I learned a lot. And someone to tell you, here's all the things you did wrong today, and now you have a chance to fix it. All right. So that's all the time we have for today. And I want to thank my guests. I had a great time, and this was a wonderful second part for the episode. I also want to thank everyone who was listening. And if you want to be a guest on the show, hit us up on Facebook or send us an email to crossingculturespodcast@gmail.com. If you're currently in Israel, if you live in Israel, if you have a long layover in Israel, whatever, if you want to be a guest on the show. If you're looking for the show or the podcast on any of the apps and you can't find them, let us know. We'll make sure that you can find them. Every Monday, or almost every Monday, we're on Facebook and on YouTube. So be sure to like our page and subscribe and hit us up in the comments. Tell us how are things where you're from. And I hope to see you on the next episode.